Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. We got something new for you. It's a new house. The new man cave inside, but that's not ready yet. You know who else has something new for you? Mike Fransoso. He's got a new hip. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about hospital races with 80-year-old women. We're going to talk about a hell of a career on the field and a coaching career that's just getting started. We're going to do it all right now on episode 18 of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. All right, guys, welcome to episode 18 of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. Apparently, it is Mike week. We've had Mike Ullman, we've had Mike Antonini, and now it is time for our next guest, Mike Fransoso. Sos, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ashmore?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Just hanging in there and taking a break from pushing shopping carts around at Whole Foods to actually pretend to still be a sports writer. So things are good.
There you go.
Yes.
At least you got a job going on. I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs, so waiting for baseball to come back.
Yeah, man, I can't friggin' wait. I guess that's kind of, maybe it's a good place to start is, you've got this new job in the Mariners organization. I'm sure you're dying to get going. I guess how difficult has it been to not really be able to make that transition into full-time coaching right now?
Yeah, it sucked, just to put it lightly, because we were just kicking off. Like, we hadn't even started minor league spring training yet. Like, we had our mini camp, and then pitchers and catchers showed up, and I think we had, 2 or 3 days of pitchers and catchers, and all of the minor leagues was in for their physicals, and then the next day, it got banged. They were yeah, everyone's going home. So I feel for the guys that just flew down and ended up having to just turn around. But no, I was getting excited. I was getting acclimated, met most of the guys because there was a lot of guys in mini camp. So I felt like the transition was running smooth, and then this happened, and I was at the time we thought, maybe it was going to be 2 weeks or 3 weeks sent back home, and everybody comes back, and you just kind of start over. But now this layoff has been difficult, and it's unfortunate, but hopefully soon we can get back to it.
Yeah, man, I absolutely can't wait. But it seems like you've been kind of busy. Maybe starting a little bit of a podcast of your own. Is that true?
I did, yeah. So me and my two buddies from back home, we've been talking about it, kind of just joking around for a while, actually. Just kinds of the ridiculous conversations that we have, and you just sit there, you're like, man, if this was recorded, this would be pretty funny. And one of them works in the Red Sox now. He's a hitting coach as well and owns a facility, and the other guy runs the facility and the teams there. So they're like, you know what, we have quite a big audience of younger guys and high school, college, pro guys. So why don't we just touch on some baseball topics, and we decided to add a little twist and have a little humor in it, because there are so many podcasts now that are player development driven, that we're we don't want to just do one of those, which they're great, but we want to add a little mix. So it takes up some free time, and it's enjoyable when we do it. So I don't know how many people are listening, but we enjoy it.
Yes, it's the Locker Talk podcast for those who want to check it out. I guess how have you found getting into the podcast world? Has it been more difficult than maybe you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd make a good one, but I
Me
hope
neither.
people don't hate listening to it. So, but no, it's pretty fun. I think it is difficult sometimes, and I'm sure you probably noticed too that you want it to be free flowing. But then when you start out, you get the guest on the phone or on the computer, and you're not recording right away, you kind of got to tell them, hey, okay, we're going to start now, and you kind of got to go into that mode of, pretending you guys weren't just talking for 10 minutes prior.
Yeah.
So that was a little difficult, but I think we're getting a little bit better. It is props to the people that do it, though. I mean, I've listened to a few years, and they're awesome. So it is kind of difficult to do, but it is fun.
Yes. Well, hopefully this will be fun as well. I guess we can kind of start getting into some things here. And I guess the first kind of place I would go with you is kind of your time in high school and playing just a bunch of different sports, basketball, football, I think hockey as well. I guess what kind of ultimately made you decide on sticking with baseball full-time going forward into college?
Yeah, it was kind of growing up in New Hampshire, obviously, baseball isn't huge. Hockey's a pretty big sport. So I grew up playing hockey and baseball, like competitively, like my Little League and, All-Stars. But then I also played hockey that was almost year-round. Like, it was a big travel team. And I actually liked hockey a lot more growing up. And then as I got older, started, falling more in love with baseball. And it kind of got to a point where I had to choose one or the other type of thing. Because if I wanted to play hockey, I was going to have to go to like a prep school or something like that. Because the hockey team at my high school wasn't very good. Yeah, so it was like, all right, you got to choose one. So when I went into high school, my freshman year, I decided like I wasn't playing hockey anymore. So I played golf in the fall because I was far too tiny to play football. I would have died. So I played golf. And then in the winter, I actually played basketball. I had played it, prior, but nothing like competitive. So I played basketball in high school my freshman year, and then baseball obviously in spring. And then the following year, I missed hockey. So I asked like the AD, hey, can I play hockey and baseball? Like hockey and basketball. Basketball practices were after school. Hockey was at like 5 a.m. Ultimately he ended up saying no. So I was like, all right, I'll play hockey. I gave it another shot and enjoyed it. But then the following year I went back to basketball. So I was kind of just flipping all over from sport to sport. I'm just a sports nut. I like to play everything. So I enjoyed that about my high school days. But, baseball, I think, just came a little bit more naturally, and I enjoyed putting in the work for it. Unfortunately, I was a little guy. Still am, not huge by any means, but I am significantly bigger now than I was in high school. So, but I think my skills kind of just, took over and led me to at least, the University of Maine. But other than that, I didn't have many offers.
Yeah, so I guess what was the decision like when it came time to go to Maine? I guess what kind of schools were making offers on you, and what ultimately made you decide to go there?
Yeah, so Maine, Northeastern, and Bryant, they were actually Division II at the time. They were moving to Division I my freshman year. So those are the only Division I schools. I had a handful of D2s and D3s reach out as well. But, as any high school kid, you're kind of set on wanting to play Division I. And then Bryant, it kind of just, they couldn't make the tournament until my senior year because they were moving up a division. So that kind of threw me out on that. I really enjoyed my trip. I liked the campus. I liked all of it. It was just, I'm a competitive person. For me to play, like, I want to play for something. I want to win a championship. So that kind of threw them out. And then it was between Northeastern and Maine. And Trimper at Maine, he was always in touch, calling all the time, and just felt welcomed, and like they wanted me. So I went up and had my visit. And when you go up there, it takes a while. It's up there. It's closer to Canada than any civilization. So and it's cold, but I'll tell you what, the campus is beautiful. It really is the true college town. There is nothing there other than the University of Maine. And the baseball facilities are great. They're some of the best in the Northeast. So I just kind of saw that and could see myself playing there. And it really worked out. I was very fortunate. I started right away as a freshman, played all 56 games. And so it was just a really good fit for me.
Yeah. How hard is it to get seen up there? Because, America East, it's a solid ball. It's a decent conference, but it's obviously not one of the more prominent conferences in college ball. Is it hard to get seen and get noticed and kind of get on the big league radar up there?
It is. I think those guys in that conference, and look, there's some great players in that conference. It is just really hard. And I think it's a hard job for scouts kind of to just decipher what is professional talent coming out of there. So I think a lot of guys depend on summer leagues, especially the Cape. If you're fortunate enough to go to the Cape, which I was, and I think that's what kind of jumped out. And then the trips to Florida, that's where most of those schools spend. I know Maine, we have a 2-week spring break, so we literally spent 2 weeks in Florida during spring break, and that's where the majority of the scouts are obviously going to be. Who the hell wants to drive up to Orono, Maine to watch a 9-inning ball game in 25 degrees? It's just it's not going to happen. So So you really don't get that many games that you're going to get seen. So, and really what I think it comes down to too is we had a few big arms. And I think that more than anything is what attracts scouts, right? Like when you have a big arm, a guy that blows up the radar gun, that can help other guys on the team. And I think that's what happened. We had Jeff Gibbs, who got drafted by the Diamondbacks. He was in my class, got drafted as a junior. We had Steve Praxis. So we had some good arms that I think drew some attention. And, you know, I guess I just so happened to fool some guys and play good when they were watching.
Yeah, you mentioned the COD. You were with the Chatham Anglers at that time. I guess how big of a role did that kind of play in kind of getting you some more national attention?
Yeah, I think it definitely did. It was awesome playing there. You know, I think I held my own. I think I hit, 260 something, which in that league is really good. It's a pitcher friendly league for sure. You're getting the guys that are the best of the best. And it's a great league. And obviously you go down there and there's 10, 15 scouts at every single game. You know, it doesn't matter who's playing, they're there. And the competition is just great. So I had a blast. That was honestly the most fun that I've ever had playing baseball. Like that summer, it was just so awesome. And, if you play well, it doesn't matter where you're from. There's a lot of guys that are Division III, Division II guys. They get that opportunity and they go play well in the Cape and they get drafted. And I think it's because of that summer they had in the Cape. So it's actually very unfortunate that it's not being played this summer. That was a huge bummer. I saw that. But what an opportunity for guys. If they ever get the chance to go, like, you don't ever turn that down. It's a blast. Yeah.
So we put together that big monster senior year at Maine, America East Player of the Year, senior year, huge numbers, all that. How much is the draft kind of on your mind at that time, and ultimately, what's it like when you do end up going?
Yeah, honestly, I thought my junior year, after my junior year, I thought I was going to have a chance. I think I had a few, better power numbers and stuff like that my junior year, but that didn't come and that didn't happen. And I had a lot of teams saying that they saw me more of a senior sign, so I kind of, before the season started, had those hopes. And then when I had a good year, it was like, all right, I was, fully expecting or hoping at least to get an opportunity. And so I was just sitting all day, at my house, just waiting. And I heard anywhere from as early as the 6th round on, and each round came and went, nothing. Came and went, nothing. Finally, I was like, you know what? I got to get out of my house. So I went and played golf with my cousin, actually, and kind of just put my phone away. Obviously, I kept checking, but it was just getting later and later, and the Pirate scout ended up calling and was like, hey, man, hang in there. Like, I'm really trying to get you. We're hoping within the next couple of rounds or whatever. So I was about to tee off. Like, we were on the tee box, and my phone starts, like, going nuts. And I'm like, what the hell? And I was getting texts before I even knew. I'm like, getting congratulations texts. And I'm like, what, for what? And then all of a sudden the scout called, saying that I was drafted and stuff. So it was a cool moment. We held the tea time off for a little bit and went up and had a few adult beverages to celebrate. And then went out and shot a 39. So we only played 9 and then took it back, had a little celebration with my parents and some family. So it was a pretty cool day.
I was doing some research for this and saw you'd had some hip surgeries. You were kind of banged up in college, even at that time. Do you think that kind of maybe kept some teams away from you at that time?
I'm not sure. I did have 2 hip surgeries, and being a, shortstop and agile position, I'm sure that came across, and I'm sure they did their thorough research on the number of injuries that I had. I also had a hernia surgery too. So I had 3 surgeries in college. But I felt healthy. There was also a shoulder injury I had like my junior year that I think might have maybe drew some red flags. They were like, geez, this guy is seriously injury prone. But can't look back on that now. But yeah, I do think if they're a good scout, like, they're doing their research, they got to. And if you see a guy that comes up with 3 surgeries and 2 on his hip as a middle infielder, you're going to be like, let me look a little more into this, So, but it all worked out. I'm glad it did, and here we are.
Yes. So going to pro ball right away, go to Jamestown, go to the Penn League. Penn League is a very, very good league, and you're in the All-Star game right away. Do you expect to be able to make that transition to pro ball and that good of a league that well as you did right away?
Um, yeah, like I went out, and the way I saw it, I think the Cape kind of groomed me for it. Playing that previous summer, it was sort of very similar, to that. You're obviously going to have, some of those stud Latin guys too that you get coming up that are young, but it was a difficult league, and I think I just kind of let my skills play out. Right when I got drafted, it was kind of like, all right, here I am, a 27th rounder. I got $2,000 as a senior sign. Like, here we go, just go out and prove it. So I kind of just played my game, played free, and I had a blast. I ended up doing pretty well. I think my bat to ball skills played there, and I think too, like having a good eye. I had quite a few walks in that league. You can get some of those young Latin guys that they throw hard. They're just still trying to command the zone a little bit. So I think that played into my strength. Having those good walk numbers. So.
Yeah. First year in pro ball, it's a lot of shortstop, a lot of second base, kind of what you're used to in Maine. And then 14, you go to West Virginia and you're all over the place. Is that something that organically happens? Is that something where it's like, we just need to get your bat in the lineup somehow? Like, how does that happen to where you kind of transition into that more versatile role that I think all of us in Somerset kind of know you as kind of holding?
Yeah, so I had never played outfield before that. They drafted me as a shortstop. It was all shortstop and second base my first year, and then we go into spring training into 14. It was my first spring training, and you know how affiliated ball is. There's a serious business side to it. So when I got slated out, it was basically as the second baseman going to West Virginia. And then they made some moves. We had a first-round catcher and a second-round catcher that they want to go into West Virginia, and they didn't want them to split time. So they moved one of the catchers to third base, which moved our third baseman, who was also an overslot guy, had got a lot of money, moved him to second base. And we had shortstop Jacoby Jones. Pirates moved him to shortstop. He's now a center fielder with Detroit. So the infield was pretty clogged up with some good players and a lot of money. So that was difficult in itself right there, just trying to get into the lineup. So I went there as basically like a utility infielder. I wasn't playing every day. I'd get a spot start here and there. And then a few injuries happened like really early on. I think within the first 3 weeks or something like that, 2 of our stud outfielders went down with hammy injuries. So I called my agent at the time, Jim Muncie, and said, hey, these guys are injured. Like, I think I could play outfield. It'd be a good idea. Like, maybe can you give him a call and just say, hey, this guy can play outfield? So he called up player development and, kind of pitched it like, hey, he's an athlete. He's willing to do it if you guys need outfielders. So that's kind of how it happened. They were just like, you know what, we need it. Give it a shot. And they threw me out there. And I think I just used my athleticism to roam the outfield. I didn't really know anything about it, but I was like, hey, run around and catch the ball. How hard can that be? So that's where it kind of started. And then from there, and the following year in high A, it was the same role, just outfield, infield, not playing every day, just playing when called upon. And obviously my bat didn't take over in high A, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I saw the numbers in 15 are not what anybody would expect from you, who's ever seen you play. I guess to ask it directly, was the year as bad as the numbers would indicate it was?
From a hitting standpoint, yes. I think I played really good defense. But again, it's in the minor leagues, that's not going to get you to move up, you know what I mean? Or get you in the lineup, just playing good defense. I wish I knew now, or what I know now, I wish I knew back then. My mindset, the way I went about it. I was looking at it as I wasn't playing every day. I knew I wasn't. So when I did see myself in the lineup, my mindset was, hey, I got to go 4 for 4, or I got to go 3 for 4. I got to hit a home run. I got to do something that has them put me back in the lineup the following day. And that's a lot of pressure, you know, like hitting is hard. You know, you can't just go in and say, you know what, I'm going to go 3 for 4 or 4 for 4. But that was kind of the outlook I had was, hey, I got to do something special every day at the plate so that they put me back in. When in reality, the business side of it is if you're a utility guy or you're a guy that's, you know, not going to play every day, it doesn't matter if you go 4 for 4.
Yep.
You know, you still aren't going to play the next day because of the business side. They have to play certain guys. They have to get a certain number of at-bats. They got to play a certain number of games. And that's just how it is. And at the time, I didn't know it. You know, I was just pressuring myself like, hey, you got to do something. You got to do something. And it just kept building up where I would do that and the hits wouldn't come. Because when you're searching for a hit, you're probably not going to get it, you know. So it kind of snowballed and, you know, it was tough for me to not play every day as a guy that, you know, that wants to. And so when you don't do well, it just kind of snowballed on me. Fortunately enough, I was playing good defense, so it kind of held me in there a little longer than I think. But at the end of the day, yeah, I didn't hit and I didn't perform at the plate, and that's not going to play.
Yeah. So when you come off a year like that, do you kind of expect the leash to be as short as it was going into 16? Because ultimately, I guess what it was, they sent you to extend it and you ended up asking for the release. I mean, do you go into that year kind of knowing that, like, you know, this might not work out real great for me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I knew, look, going into spring training, I'm like, all right, you got to have a good spring. You got to stick with the defense, but you got to do something with the bat. So I kind of changed my swing that winter. I actually went up to Maine, and the head coach now, Nick Durba, he was working with, at the time he was following a lot of Bobby Tewksbury's stuff. And this is kind of when the whole launch angle and getting the ball in the air, that whole revolution kind of started.
Sure.
So I started diving into that with him, and I felt really good. And, you know, he said, look, like, it's your career. You have to do what you feel comfortable with and what you think is going to be best for you. Because the Pirates at that time, their hitting philosophy was not that. As you know, and a lot of teams hadn't caught up fully to that yet. But at the time, the Pirates, the philosophy, they still wanted me, you know, contact the other way. You know, whatever it was, it's not a knock. It's just, it's changed now. And so when I went into that spring training, the original meeting was actually I was going to be shortstop in AA. And so right when the truck is coming through, I got a call. My bag was on the truck for Altoona, and I see it like at the end. And I'm like, this is a little strange because I was one of the first to put it on, and it was in the back. And as I'm walking back to the clubhouse, I get a phone call from our player development. And he's like, yeah, there's just not going to be a spot for you on opening day right now in AA. So I'm like, man, all right, I'm probably going back to high A. And they're like, yeah, we're going to keep you in extended until an injury happens, you know, in the big leagues, AAA, AA, whatever, and, you know, things start to filter. So that ultimately never came. It was so strange because there was not an injury in sight at the big leagues, AAA or AA for position players. And I was there for, I must have been extended for well over a month. And that's pretty rare, you know, not to have a position player injury at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
You know, so I was sticking it out. You know, and they told me, look, it's either it's AA or nothing, you know. So, and they didn't say, hey, it's AA, you're going to get released. But I could see where it was going, you know. And so when the shortstop at high A got hurt that year, and they called up a guy from low A, I kind of got like, okay, it's either going to be AA or something. And there was a few weeks left of extended. No one was hurt, and so we just said, hey, there's an opportunity in Rockland to go play indie ball. Like, I can ask for my release. They said, you know, no worries. If you want to ask for it, that's fine. You can look around other teams. So we figured that was the, you know, best situation, hoping that a team would maybe need an infielder. Ultimately, no one did. So, you know, I went to Rockland, and that was it.
Yeah. So why Rockland? Is it something your agent set up? Did you have a connection there? I guess. How did you end up going to the Can-Am League?
Yeah, so I knew Jamie Keefe prior. He's a New Hampshire guy as well. So, I mean, we had met a few times. And so I knew him there. My best friend from home, Mike Montville, signed to play with them as well. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, this would be pretty cool to go there, like play with my best friend as a child. Like we haven't played together in so long, and to play pro ball together would be pretty cool. And my agent had set up with Wichita, the Wingnuts at the time too, in the American Association. So it was between those two teams. And I just decided, hey, if I'm going to do this, let me go have fun, because I wasn't really having fun playing baseball anymore. It wasn't fun for me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go, enjoy it, see what happens. And I know the manager. I got my best friend there. Let's give it a shot. So that's how that happened.
Yeah. From a level of play standpoint, you're just coming off a year in high A and Can-Am League. A lot of people kind of compare it to a low A, high A, double A kind of level depending on the pitching. Did that kind of make it more of a seamless transition to jump to that level of ball?
Yeah, I think more than anything, like I said, like I didn't have a good mindset the year before. I think my mindset is what really just allowed me to go out. Like I loved the game again when I got there. And that's what I love about indie ball. There's no rules. It's not, you don't have bonus babies. You don't have high draft picks that have to play. It's, hey, go out and perform. If you play well, you're going to play. If you don't play well, you're going to get released or you're not going to play. And it doesn't matter who you are. And I was allowed to be myself when I got there. And when I saw that, I think that's kind of just when I took a deep breath and was like, all right, I'm playing baseball again. Like I was playing every day. I was enjoying it. I was actually playing third base because we had a shortstop, Junior Rojo, at the time, who was really good. And I had no problem with it. I'm like, you know what? Played all over before. I might as well do it again. So I played all third base that year. And I think I just played free. I just was myself, enjoyed it, and went out and played my game.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about it. There's kind of that freeing feeling of not having to deal with like the political bullshit and all that kind of stuff. I mean, did you know that was going to be the case when you were jumping into indie ball?
I didn't, honestly. At the time, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know anybody that had played because they were still in, I think, like preseason when they were going through it. So I was, in touch with my best friend all the time, saying, like, hey, how is it? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, it's awesome. But I hadn't experienced it firsthand, nor had I known anybody that was playing. So I went in not knowing what to expect. And when I got there, like, it took me maybe a couple days just to see, like, hey, all right, this is what it's like. Like, it's go play baseball. Like there's the manager writes the lineup, and Jamie was awesome. Like he had his ground rules. Hey, play hard, do this. Other than that, it was go play free, be yourself, and that was it. I have a funny story. When I first got there, the very first day, we're going out for batting practice, and I walk down. These guys are all walking down in like cut off sleeves, like backwards hat, like all this, and I'm coming from affiliated ball. I got my hat on. I got full sleeve. I got it tucked in, and I'm waiting down there. And I look at my buddy, and I'm like, hey, BP soon. Like, what time to stretch? Like, where's the strength coach or the coach coming out? Because I'm used to, hey, stretch at this time. You got cones lined up. You got a whistle.
Yep.
If your foot's not behind the line, all this. And he's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you just, I don't know, go stretch. Go, you're on your own, And so I'm like, really? And from there, I'm like, all right, this is what indie ball is. Get your stretch in, get your work in, go play 9 innings. So.
You got a laundry list of great moments in Rockland. I think the one I want to ask you about is just the walk-off to send the team to the championship series. I think that was in 2016, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, what's that like? I think you guys were down 0-2 in that series. You can fight the way back. You're down in that game in bottom 9. What's it like being in that kind of moment?
Yeah, that right there is one of the tops in my career. I'll never forget that. So I had my mom in attendance too. She came to surprise me, which was really cool. But yeah, we went to Quebec, which is they were a very good team and a very difficult place to play. You're talking about Canadians that like their alcohol, a smaller stadium, but a lot of fans, and they pack it up, and you got these metal bleachers that they just slam. It's a pretty cool atmosphere. And so we go in there and we go down 0-2. And we're like, oh boy, here we go. It's only a best of 5. And so we're coming back, and that first game, my best friend in Montville hits a walk-off, and I think it was like the 14th inning or something crazy. Hits a walk-off home run. We're like, all right, so that gave us some life. Next game, we ended up winning, obviously. I can't remember how it went. And so here we are, tied 2-2. We're down in the 9th. And, man, there was some crazy play. We had a bunt play that they ended up throwing away. Like, there was some crazy stuff that happened to get to that moment. And I just remember 2-0 count, and bases were loaded with 1 out. And originally, like, any thought, it was like, all right, don't hit a double play. But then I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, I got 1 out, bases loaded, like, just hit the ball in the air. Dude, just hit it hard.
Yep.
And I got a good pitch, and I guess the rest is history. Drove it in. But, man, I got that feeling of just running around, like, in that moment, too, being down 0-2 and then a 9th inning and a walk-off, it was really special.
Yeah. Had some good moments in Rockland, had some not so good moments in Rockland. There was one in 17 that obviously was not so great, and I've seen you post some video of it, or else I wouldn't ask you about it. The collision, it seems like you've kind of been a bit of an injury magnet in your career too. I know you got hit in the eye in college, you had the collision in Rockland, but just with this one, I've never been in something like that. Obviously, I can't imagine what it's like to be in something like that. So maybe for fans who don't understand how a collision on the field could happen, I guess just kind of, as much as maybe you want to, talk me through it and explain how something like that does go down.
Yeah, I think just starting, that's just kind of the way I play the game is very free and, like, quote unquote, balls to the wall.
Yes.
I don't really care if there's a wall in the way. I don't care if I just kind of go, and whatever happens, happens. And that was just one of those freak things where it was a short fly ball. I turned around, I saw our center fielder not get a good jump. He actually took a step back. So at that time, I knew, all right, this is a chance for me. So I just kind of put my head down and ran. And actually, our left fielder saw the same thing. He saw our center fielder take that step back and knew, he had to go as well. And we literally called it at the exact same time. And when that happens, you don't hear anything, right? Because I'm yelling in my own head, I got it. And we literally call it at the same time. So when you're going full speed, you don't hear anything. And we collided just head on. After the last thing I remember is, honestly, I remember seeing the ball over my shoulder going into my glove. And that's really the last thing I remember. The rest, people have told me. So when we went down, everybody rushed out. I guess got up and I told our manager and the doctors, like, hey, I'm fine. Like, I'm good to go. I stood up. The doctor actually did eye test and everything. He was looking at my eyes. They had me running sprints. They had me standing on one leg, like doing all these tests for, like, concussion.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, but I passed them, all of them. And the doctor was like, all right, he's good to go. And so the other guy had already gotten ambulanced out of center field. And so I'm walking back to shortstop, and our third baseman and our second baseman are walking with me. And I guess they're telling me, like, hey, man, like, are you okay? Like, I guess I was staring just, like, out up in the sky. I had glossy eyes. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And right as the pitch was about to be thrown, I just collapsed on the ground. And they obviously came running back out, had to call the ambulance, took me to the hospital. And then the last thing I remember is waking up, getting rolled into the hospital, and was, like, confused, like, what's going on? And, yeah, so I honestly, to this day, I don't know how I was able to run, stand up on one foot. I did it all. And then I just kind of passed out. So luckily for me, it was a terrible accident, but I took, to say the least, the not the worst of it, because I got away with just a bad concussion, which it was still really bad, but the other guy had, like, 5 broken bones in his face. He had to get a couple surgeries. Like, he got really messed up because my top of my head hit him square in the face. So he took the worst of it. But yeah, it was that was by far the worst concussion I've ever had. And then I just kind of had to sit in the dark for, like, I think it was a month. I couldn't hear any, like, I couldn't listen to any sound. I couldn't see any light. It was pretty brutal. It wasn't fun.
Is it, because obviously you get back out there and you play again. Is it hard not to have that in the back of your mind when there's like that little tweener ball that comes up again? Like, is that in your mind at all when you're kind of going through that and coming back?
Honestly, I didn't have that, which is weird. My biggest thing, when I came back, was kind of just like, hey, did I maybe come back too soon? Because I'd stand there and look in, and I'd start like maybe getting a little dizzy, and like that would go through my head. But as soon as like a ball was hit or something, I just went. I didn't think about it. I just went. And then there were times after where I'm like, "Ooh, man, that was close. Like that could have been really bad." But in the moment, I see it and I just go.
Gotcha. So how do we end up getting you to Somerset in 2018?
So after 2 years in Rockland, I had heard about Somerset, and we had Maloney go over there at the end of 17, I believe.
Joe Maloney, yeah.
Yes, I believe at the end of 17 for the playoffs. Now that he got picked up, so I had heard about the league and how good it was and how many ex-big leaguers were there and all that. And I was just at a point where I really wanted to get back to affiliated ball and or maybe try to get a winter ball job. And I just felt the best opportunity for me to do that was to try to get into the Atlantic League. So I talked to Jamie, our manager, and just told him the situation. I said, look, like, I love playing Rockland. I love playing for you. Like, but my next step, I feel like this is what I want to do and this is what's going to be best for me. And he was very receptive to it. Obviously, that's what makes a good manager. He was looking out for my best interests, and he felt the same way as well. So he made a few calls to Brett and I think John, and I think he pitched it pretty well for me. I think he told him, hey, this guy can help you out. He's a grinder. He doesn't have the resume that, most guys you're going to get, but he'll give you everything you got every day. And I think, obviously Brett and John, I think just kind of took a wild chance on me because, I only made it to high A, all this. Like, my resume doesn't stack up with some of the other guys. So I think they took a chance and said, give it a shot.
Yeah. Were you a little surprised that the phone didn't ring for you in the Can-Am League?
I think after that first year I was, yeah. Because I think my bat came around. People knew I could play the middle infield, and here I was playing third as well. So it did. And then I think after that year, I think that's when it kind of turned for me almost again, and I stopped worrying about getting picked up. And it was more like, hey, it's out of my control. Just whatever you got left in you, just enjoy it. And I think so that's where that mindset, it just kind of hopped in. And would I have liked to got another chance and picked up? Absolutely, But at that time, I figured, hey, it's out of my control. Go out and play your game. And if it happens, it happens. If not, oh well,
Yeah. So get to Somerset 2018, like we said. Spring training, I guess, what is kind of the mentality there? Do you go into that, thinking like I have a roster spot, I have a set spot, I need to, compete my ass off to kind of make this roster? I guess, what is kind of your mentality when you get to the Atlantic League for the first time?
Yeah, my only thought was just play your ass off and hope that they give you a spot. That was, I had no expectations of, playing and or cracking the lineup to start or even starting opening day. I was just hoping that I was going to make the team. And if I was a bench guy, I was a bench guy. If they need me, and I told Brett right away, and he told me, like, it's going to have to be multiple positions. And I said, no problem. Like, I'm all for that. I just wanted to get in that league and, see what it was about and see if I could hold my own. So I no expectations of, hey, I should be playing every day. I should be playing here. It was wherever they wanted me to play, whenever they needed me, I was good to go. So that was my mentality going in, just play your game and try to help out, more so be a versatile defender, so that, especially in the Atlantic League, or you have limited roster spots and stuff like that. So
yeah.
Any time you can get a guy that plays multiple positions, I think it can help, at least make a manager's job a little easier, or say John, if someone gets hurt, to kind of have to go around quick to get a new guy. It's like, all right, we can fill at least, say, Fransoso in here for a week until we can get someone else. So that was kind of my mentality.
Yeah. Why did things click then for you so well in that first half of 18?
Honestly, I think being the new guy too, like, so in the league as well, no one really knew who I was. So I think they were going just stock pitching, and I went in again with no expectations. It's like, hey, go out, play, just play your game. And I was having really good at bats. And then when it got to about the midway point in All-Star break, I think guys started trying to kind of figuring out. And these are veteran guys. These are a lot of big league pitchers. They know how to pitch. They can smell your weaknesses, and they'll exploit you if you have a big one. And at the time, I think I did. It was inside, and I couldn't make the adjustment, and those guys did. So I think that's kind of where the struggles came in that second half, was me not being able to make an adjustment, and them kind of seeing me a few times, saying, all right, this guy can do this, but he hasn't shown me he can do this, and kind of exploited it.
I remember how frustrated you were for a big part of that second half, and how, it's a question to ask and I get it, but how tough was it to just be in your own head for a lot of that second half, like it kind of seemed like you were, and trying to still go out there and do what you were doing in that first half?
Yeah, that's the tough part about baseball, right? Like, anytime you get into a slump as a hitter, like, it's a hard thing to get out of, especially when you've had success in that year or earlier on. And then you go through the slump, you're like, all right, where the hell did it go? It can't just magically disappear, and here it is, and you can't figure it out. So, and it was tough because I saw the way that I was contributing when I did get on base. This is when the hip still had a little bit of oil in it, so I was able to steal some bases and do all that. So yeah. I could see, when I did get on base, like, good things happened, so, and when that wasn't happening, it's like, all right, well, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not hitting home runs, obviously. And if I don't get on base, well, what good am I to the team? So it was kind of a battle in my own head, like, hey, do something. So.
Yeah. That 2018 team overall, and I've had a bunch of guys from that team on here. We've talked about how special that team was, and I'm always trying to get new perspectives on it. So I'll ask you as well. Why do you think that team gelled as well as it did? Why was that such a special team to be a part of for you and to be around for me?
Yeah, that was, honestly, that 18 team was, like, in my career, one of the teams that had the most camaraderie out of anybody. Everyone was tight. There was no cliques in clubhouses or anything. We had a lot of veteran, ex-big leaguers that you wouldn't even know it. Like, you look at a few of the guys, and they have some serious time in the show, but you wouldn't be able to tell. They were just a good clubhouse, good locker room guy, and you need that. You need that in the locker room. You need that veteran presence. But then we also had that younger generation of guys, the Pacciolis, Scotties, me, Alfredos, that were still, like, kind of young in that clubhouse, and still busting balls, so it just, the gel of the team was great. And when we went out, we knew that we had a chance to win every single night. We kind of had that stretch towards the end where we were slumping a little bit, but that happens when you win the first half. You can kind of get lackadaisical. Yeah. And it is hard. It's hard to turn it back on in the playoffs, and you obviously saw how that played out. So I think that was the pitfall. That's the pitfall of any team, though, when you have those first and second half winners. If you cruise in that first half, it's easy to just be like, all right, let's, take a break here and maybe save the body or save this. And then, stuff starts going downhill while these other teams are fighting for a playoff spot. And then they go into the playoffs cruising, and you're like, all right, time to turn it back on. That's tough to do.
Was it tough for you personally, too? Because, you'd been to the championship series a couple of times prior to that, get to the playoffs in 18, and things don't work out. Was it kind of tough for you to kind of get so close and then not ultimately get to where you were looking to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a minor league or professional baseball championship, and it still kills me to this day, and we were so close in 18. Yeah. So that was tough. And just that team itself, like, it was so awesome. It was so hard to leave that clubhouse. You know, I've had teams where, you know, it's been difficult when the season's over. You're like, man, I don't want it to end. Then you've also had teams where it's like, oh, thank God this is over, and you pack up your stuff faster than you can even think, and you're out of there. That was one where, and I remember at the end of it, it was tough. The guys were upset. There were guys, we might have been there till, 2 a.m, just shooting with each other, just enjoying each other's company, because we knew, for some of us, it was going to be the last time. So that's special when that happens. But again, when you go down 0-2, like we did again in Long Island, and then you come back to tie it up on your home turf, and then to lose Game 5 in the fashion that we did, like, it's just it's a dagger in the heart. So that was a tough one to swallow for sure.
Well, hopefully there's some more positive memories we can talk about going forward, and I guess a good place there might be Australia. How does that opportunity come together? And just from talking to you about it in the past, seems like that's something you really relished getting to do. So how much did you enjoy getting to get that experience over there?
Yeah, that was awesome. So, like, going back to what I said, like, that team where I didn't want it to end, I loved baseball so much that year. I loved what I was doing. I knew what I needed to work on. I told John, I'm like, hey, I got to go play. Like, I want to go play somewhere.
Yeah.
And we were hoping, we were trying for Mexico. And again, I don't have the resume, so it's difficult. And I knew that, but I was just hoping something. And at the time, I had the Australia gig early, but I said, look, like, I need to make some money too as well. Like, this is great playing, being able to go, but I got to make some money. So we were hoping for Mexico or Dominican or something. And then when that didn't come, Australia was still on the table. I said, you know what? Like, I'm never going to get this opportunity again to go to Australia for free and make some money while doing it. Like, I just hopped on board, and I didn't know what to expect. I knew the league was pretty good, but I went down with just some goals that I wanted to work on before coming back. And it just ended up that it was just a great time overall. I had a blast. I played well, and really glad that I did it.
Yeah, Australia is not an easy league. Australian Baseball League is not an easy league, but you hit 430 there. How the hell do you do that?
Honestly, I don't. Well, it was the mustache, if we're going to be honest. it was the mustache there. But no, I don't know. I had some things click early on. That I knew going in, hey, they exposed me on the inner half. I wasn't able to drive balls. This is what I'm going to work on here. And that was my sole purpose. Hey, I want to see whatever I do. If I hit 200 or if I hit 500, I want to hit a few home runs to the pull side, and I want to drive the ball in the gap. And that's just what I focused on. And I don't know if pitchers were maybe like, hey, I want to throw them inside. I don't know, but it worked out. And I think I just had a simple plan every time I went up, and I executed it for the most part. So it all worked out.
Yeah. As your first winter ball experience, I know we've kind of talked about the hip a good amount as well. Did that, in retrospect, accelerate the hip being, for lack of a better way of putting it, a little bit more fucked up coming into last year, or did that have nothing to do with it, or how did it all kind of unfold?
Yeah, no, it did, unfortunately. So I was still able to play when I got out there. It definitely by no means was pretty. If you saw me running down the line in Australia, you'd be like, there's no way this guy is going to play again.
Still ran a little bit more pretty than Massey does, but that's okay.
Yeah, but when I went down there, like, I got off the plane, and I don't know if, maybe the 14-hour or 20-hour plane ride accelerated. I don't know, but I got off, and after the first few days, like, I looked at Massey, and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play. Like, I was nervous that I wasn't going to be able to play in Australia when I got there.
Wow.
It got so bad there. I was like, what the heck happened? So, but once my adrenaline kicked in, like, there were times, obviously, in previous seasons where my hip would hurt during the game, but then adrenaline kicked in and I just went. And that kind of happened in Australia, where once the game started, I was able to do it. But, like, during our practices during the week, I couldn't take ground balls. I couldn't take too many swings just because it hurt so bad. But then I'd get in the game and, adrenaline takes over and you just go. So I was able to, but I didn't have any triples. I think I might have had one triple, and I think the center fielder and right fielder collided and then took a nap and fell. And so that's why I got the third. But Yeah, running down the line was not pretty. I didn't have any stolen bases. I didn't even attempt, just because I wasn't able to do it. And that was when I came back. It was a huge fear of mine. But I was like, man, that was not pretty. Like, that's not going to play in the Atlantic League. I can't get away with that in the Atlantic League. So that's we got the stem cell. Sorry, I'm going further with this story, but we got stem cells done when I returned because we were thinking it was my labrum, and so that was kind of without doing surgery and basically ending the career right there. It was like, all right, let's give stem cells a shot.
And the labrum was what you had the surgery on in college, right?
Yeah, I had the 2 labrum repairs in college, so I figured, look, it's torn again. It's probably completely torn. I know I have some impingement, but I didn't know the full extent of it. So we did the stem cells. We're like, hey, just rest for, I think it was like 3 weeks. Don't do anything, similar to a PRP, and then you're going to start rehab again. So I got to inject the stem cells, and I'm like excited. I'm like, all right, this is going to work. I'm going to be back to normal. I'm going to be stealing bases, doing all this. And it got worse after the 4 weeks, like significantly worse. And I hadn't really done anything. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I kind of lied to myself and lied to Brett and John a little bit. Like, sorry if they're listening. And, I think they know that now. But yeah. I just told them, like, hey, it'll be good. I just needed to loosen up. And once my adrenaline gets back, like, I'll be fine. And that was obviously, as you know, far from the case. So.
Yeah, is there a point in that year where you know that you're pretty much screwed and it's not going to get any better? Like, is it spring training? Is it a couple weeks into the year? I guess, is there a point where that kind of realization hits?
Yes. I want to say spring training, but I'm so stubborn that I'm like, no, something will change. But yeah, it was spring training. Like, when I couldn't bend over to feel the ground ball, like my legs would be straight and I'd just bend in my back. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. And so I was hoping, like, all right, I'll go to the outfield, like I'll play the outfield instead, which I did. And then I started having to run, like sprint to run down balls. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this either. And there were points where I knew for a fact I catch that ball last year, or I knew for a fact in the infield I make that play because I get to that ball. And that just wasn't happening. So I knew, like, hey, I'm very limited here. And I was kind of just trying to do everything in my power to lie to myself and say that, you know what, it'll kick back in next week. It'll start to feel better, or you're still getting used to it, or something like that. And it wasn't doing it. So I think well before I had that talk with Brett, I kind of knew and saw it coming, but I just didn't want to believe it. And then when he called me into the office that day, I actually had no intentions, nor did he have any intentions of saying, like, hey, this isn't working. He was just really trying to see how I felt because he knew I was struggling. And I don't know, I just broke down and was like, I can't do it anymore.
I don't know if I will ever be able to forget going up to you after that in the clubhouse, because that was still very emotional for everybody involved, Brett, especially yourself. When you have that kind of conversation and there's a moment where it feels like, I may have played my last game. Ultimately, at that point you didn't, but where it feels like you may have played your last game, and to have that happen that suddenly, what are the emotions like of having to go through that, basically?
Yeah, that was, I didn't know exactly how hard it was going to be, and you don't feel the emotions or even know what they're going to feel like till it actually happens. Because everybody thinks about the last time they're going to play. Everybody knows that it's coming to an end at some point. You try to brace for it, but the way that this went down, like, so sudden, and there was no bracing for it, there was no preparing for it. It happened, and in my mind, it was like everything that you did for the last, 7 years of pro ball and however long you've been playing the game, like, it's all done. It's all over for the simple fact that you can't even run to first base. And for it to happen, too, in the middle of the season, or earlier than the middle, it was a difficult pill to swallow. You just kind of feel like your whole world gets turned upside down a little bit. And I know it sounds dramatic, but, like, if you haven't gone through it, like, when you play this game for a living, like, it really is your whole life. Everything you do revolves around it. Even when you go, like, the off season, everything you do is for the following season, working out, hitting, all that. Like, that's all you have to do that to prepare for the next season. So when this happened, I kind of just saw a flash of, like, well, now what do I do? It was almost like I had no purpose. So it was tough at first, definitely. But again, I had great teammates, great coaches. Everybody a part of Somerset was a huge support system for me.
Yeah, the player-coach thing, and it was more really just a coach thing, at least for the short term after that all happened. Was that something you were honestly able to embrace right away? Did it take a little while?
Yeah, it definitely took a little while. Because, again, my mindset was still in that player mode.
Yeah.
Obviously, still trying to digest everything that happened and went on. And still having a locker in the clubhouse, seeing guys get ready for games, like. And that's honestly, like, one of the things I miss most is, like, you got 30 minutes before the game or whatever, and you're lacing up your cleats, you're putting your socks, whatever, like, that whole routine. I saw everybody going through it, and I was sitting there, and I didn't have a routine anymore because I wasn't playing. So I'm like, I felt so lost. I felt, like, alone. I was like, this is terrible. But then it started slowly to transition, into it. I think going to the cage and working with guys, pre-BP and throwing BP was kind of like a stress reliever for me. It kind of turned my attitude around a little bit. So, I look forward to doing that, as it got going. Instead of my routine being getting ready for the game, it was helping other guys get ready for the game, and that was a relief for me.
Yeah. So to get those few more ABs like you did ultimately end up got a few innings on the mound too. How much did that kind of mean to you to kind of maybe have that mindset of knowing that, what, this is for sure going to be it, and really maybe cherish those last couple of games?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I had the two, I wouldn't call it comebacks. There was one where I came back for, I think it was a week or whatever it was, and was actually, like, kind of playing. And that was kind of just like a false hope. I was hoping that maybe the time off would help. And then when we realized, that was it, that's when I really felt, okay, this is done. Yeah. And so I knew going into that, like, all right, my mentality of player was completely gone. I flipped it to coach player coach mode. Like, how can I help these guys? Like, I knew my time was done. I just wanted to be a good teammate, and I knew that I wanted to get into coaching. So it was like, all right, use this time to kind of, propel that or kind of get the kinks out, really. Like, I've never done it, so I was learning, and I learned a lot of things about being a coach in that time. So I'm grateful for it. Mm-hmm. But then I also knew, and I told Brett, hey, I have got to play one more game, and looking back, I wish maybe I didn't, because that meant we would have been in the playoffs or pushing for the playoffs. But ultimately, we got out of it in that last game, the second last game. I told Brett, hey, just give me one more. I just want to get that feeling of, like, getting ready, going through my routine, getting on the field, the national anthem, all of that. I wanted to feel it one last time as a player, and just everything that I did, like, soak it in, just so I could just relish the moment. And, go out on as good a note that I could.
Yeah, you said you learned a lot kind of in that short stint of coaching last year. I guess I would not be doing my job if I didn't ask, what did you learn?
Yeah, a lot of it was just the relationships that you got to build. It's different, obviously, player-to-player relationship and player-to-coach. I think the closer you can get to that of being, like, like a friend as opposed to a dictator, obviously that's what you want.
Yeah.
And I think I learned, mostly it was with guys' routines and how guys kind of get locked in. I started to learn that, when I was in the cage for a few hours before the game, because as a player, you go down and you hit, and you worry about getting yours and getting yourself ready, that you kind of just tune everything else out. You don't really see other guys' routines. But as a coach, I'm sitting there, I see how Will Kendrick goes about his business. Then I look over and I see Jimmy Paredes doing his thing, and A-Rod and Espinal and Patchy. They're all different. And each guy has something different that makes them click. Each guy has something that they get to get locked in. And that's kind of what I saw. And you kind of just hold on to those things, and you're like, you kind of put in your back pocket, all right, Will needs this. Espinal needs this. A-Rod needs this when he's not going, whatever it is. And you kind of just pick up on things. And, I just tried to use that to get better every day. There was trial and errors where, I would do some things and I don't think guys were super responsive to it. So I'm like, all right, toss that out. I don't want to do that. And then you start to do things where guys really enjoy it and they let you know, hey, that was awesome. Or like, hey, I like doing that. Can we do it again? And so you just kind of jot down mental notes and say, all right, this worked, this didn't. And you just continue to move forward.
So if I'm going to ask you fun questions about the 18 team, I kind of have to balance it out and ask you some questions about the 19 team too. And I'm more curious about your perspective because you got to be a coach and be a player on that team. But the second half that year just obviously goes without saying was not collectively what you guys wanted. So are you able to pinpoint basically what the hell happened last year?
Pinpoint? No, I don't think there's one thing. I think it was a collection of a few things. Look, when you get on a team and you have talent, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you're not all pulling the same rope in the same direction, things are not going to go well. And I think that was probably one of the major things going on is, look, there was guys pulling the rope. There was definitely guys that were playing hard. They were trying to do stuff. But you got to pull it in the same direction. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line, but you can't have guys pulling east and west and north and south backwards. It's got to all be going forward. And you're going to have your kinks where, it's not every single day that you're pulling in the same direction, but for the most part, y'all got to be going together. And I just think that that wasn't happening, especially in the second half. And that happens when you press. Hey, you got to win. You got to win this half or else you don't make the playoffs. You got to win this game or you're going to be 5 games out. Or you're playing, this is a big series because we're chasing these guys. Whatever it is, I think that added to the pressure, and that didn't help. So, again, when you're not pulling in the same direction to start and then that stuff kind of adds on, it becomes very difficult.
Was it that way too in the first half, or did kind of maybe the winning maybe mask some of that, or how did you kind of feel about that?
No, I don't think it was that way in the first half. I think it was better in the first half. I think we just got outplayed in the first half, honestly. I think, who was it? Long Island won, right?
Yeah.
I just think they were just a better team than us. I think that's really what it came down to. Because look, we had some good ball games. We were in a bunch of games. I think there were some 1-run losses. I think we had. There were times where our pitching would absolutely shove, and they'd give up a run, and the hitters didn't hit that day.
Yeah.
Or we'd go out and put up 7 runs, but we gave up 9. And so I think that was more so what was going on in that first half, and we couldn't catch up to Long Island. And then once the second half comes along, it's like, all right, here we go. We have to win this half, and you get a little added pressure. It becomes tough.
Yes. So it's enough about the 19 team. We don't need to talk about that too much, man. But the hip, I guess you finally got that replaced. How are you feeling?
I did, yeah. I feel great, honestly. It was, and look, I'm lucky I got it done when I did because with everything going on, if I waited longer, I probably wouldn't have got it done. So, I feel great. It's crazy. I got the surgery, and which is crazy too. Like, so right before, the hospital calls me just to verify everything. And she goes, yeah, can I have your date of birth? And I'm like, yeah, 7/27/1990. And she's like, you're getting a total hip replacement, right? Like, is that correct or is that a mistake on here? I'm like, no, that's correct. I am getting my hip replaced. So I go in and get it done. And they're like, yeah, we're going to have you up and walking in a few hours as soon as as soon as your numbness goes away. And I got up and I was walking on crutches. I felt 100 times better walking in the hospital with a brand new hip about 3 hours later than I have in the last, 4 years walking. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was kind of a quick recovery, and I took it day by day, and each step got better, and now I'm playing golf. So
Yeah, I'm stunned the recovery process is that fast. You're able to be walking a couple hours afterwards. Did you know that going into it?
yeah, so they told me I was going to walk out of the hospital. Like that's part of the process. As soon as you get it done, like they actually want you to walk around, and it's funny because I might have been still a little drugged up, but I'm walking with my crutches, and down comes the hall like an 80-year-old woman, and she has like her cane or her stroller walking. She had just gotten a hip replacement too. And our assistant or our field coordinator for the Mariners texted me, like, asked how it was going. And I replied back, I'm like, oh, it's great. I just dusted some old lady down the hallway in a crutch race. I was moving. No, but they want you up and walking. And every day, too, when you go home, they tell you to stand up and walk like as much as you can handle.
Wow, that's crazy. You mentioned the Mariners, and I guess that's kind of how we started off. Maybe it's a good place to end it as well. I know you were maybe looking at some college coaching opportunities. So how did everything kind of end up? You ended up latching on with the Mariners.
Yeah, I think with the experience I had as player coach with Somerset, and that is pro ball. I think I started to enjoy what I was doing there. I always wanted to get into college to begin with and eventually be a head coach. But the more I started playing and in pro ball, it was like, man, I just enjoy the pro game so much better than the college game. And I fielded a few interviews for college jobs, while the season was going on. And ultimately, nothing came of it where I didn't get the job, which is a blessing in disguise I see now, because then once the season ended, I just started reaching out to all these teams, and a few got back, and so I had the Mariners called. Who else? There was the Mets, and a few other teams just kind of reached out for a position. I'm like, whoa, this is happening quick. But at the time, nothing. I think it took me to like November, and I hadn't heard anything. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to be jobless. Like, this is going to suck. And then all of a sudden, like a bunch of teams reached out, and I had the interview with the Mariners, and everything they pitched to me was awesome. I was originally supposed to go to the Dominican, and they were the first ones to offer the job, and I took it. Everything that they said and the way they go about, their business and how they take care of their employees and all that just was awesome.
Yeah, you did go down to the Dominican though, right, for a little while?
I did, yeah. So we had a week left of the instructs in the Dominican, and so I was able to go to that and get a taste of what I thought was going to be my home for the summer. So that was awesome. It was my first trip down to the Dominican, and man, what a different world that is. If you've never been there, it's pretty eye-opening. But they absolutely love their baseball down there. It is their life.
Yes. So ultimately, you go from thinking you'll be in the Dominican to Everett, Washington, which is a bit of a jump. I guess what's kind of the role there going forward, and how much are you looking forward to actually getting a chance to go up there and do your thing? Yeah,
that's. I was looking forward to that. I'm hoping maybe we still get the opportunity. We don't know anything that's going on now.
Yeah.
But I was very excited just to get the opportunity to, you get all these new draftees in, all these guys out of college, and that's where they're going is to short season. And so you're the first coach in pro ball that they're going to interact with. So that's really how you handle that situation can be, very telling for a player and how their career kind of goes, so you get to kind of mold them and show them the ropes of what pro ball is and, kind of just help them in their first step of their journey. So I was looking forward to that. So hopefully at some point, I get to do that and get to experience that.
Yeah. So this has been fun, man. It's been fun getting to catch up with you, and I'm looking forward to getting to see how this whole coaching thing goes for you. I know you kicked ass at it last year, and I'm sure you'll do the same kind of going forward, man. So whatever ends up happening with all this craziness, man, best of luck, and I look forward to seeing you work your way up to the big league soon, dude.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. If you ever want to give me another interview, go right ahead, because it always, like I said, whenever you interviewed me, it meant I did something good. So I appreciate all that you did for us.
I'm sure we'll be talking quite a bit then, man. There's going to be a lot of positive things in the future, dude. So thanks a lot, sis.
I appreciate it. All right, Mike.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for checking out episode 18 of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast with Mike Fransoso. This is a fun one, guys. This was a fun one, over an hour-long chat. Some Somerset stories you probably haven't heard before, and a lot of stuff about his career as well. Just really good stuff. I'm glad you guys are able to take the time and check it out. I really, really do appreciate it, and I can't wait for you guys to check out the next one, episode 19. Confirmed, it's been taped, with Mark Minikazi, stud of Primal Gloves, Primal Baseball. Had a long playing career. Drew a lot of headlines when he came out of basically the stands to get back into the Giants organization. We're going to talk about that with him and a lot more. In the meantime, stay safe, stay in your new backyard, whatever. Wash your damn hands, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys so much for your support. I do appreciate it.